Good evening and welcome to the Scottsdale Historic Preservation Commission meeting. The purpose of the Historic Preservation Commission in part is to establish standards necessary to preserve the historic character of resources designated historic, develop, maintain, and from time to time amend plans for the preservation of resources of historic significance in the city, and review proposed alterations to historic and archaeological resources through the Certificate of Appropriateness process. The agenda consists of the roll call, administrative report, minutes approval of the prior meeting, regular agenda, non-action items. No vote will be made by the commission on these. Citizens wishing to speak on any agenda item may fill out a blue speaker card, or if not willing to speak, may fill out a yellow comment card and turn it in at the staff table before the agenda item is to be discussed. You'll be called by name when it is your turn to speak. When called, come to the table, state your name and address, and then begin speaking. Groups wishing to speak should elect a spokesperson to represent the views of the group. To facilitate the meeting, your comment will be limited to 3 minutes for individual speakers, 1 additional minute for each additional individual present at the meeting who has contributed their time to a representative speaker, up to 10 minutes. Please format your speech to be accommodated within the applicable timeframe given. I remind our audience that the review relates to historic preservation matters and does not include consideration of existing zoning district designations, zoning entitlements, or the allowed uses within the zoning districts. After the public comments have ended, the applicant may have up to 5 minutes to respond to the public comments. The commission's motion may be to approve with modified stipulations, to deny the request, or continue the case. Thank you for your interest and time. Now we will begin the meeting with a roll call.
Chair Davis,
Present.
Vice Chair Hosmer,
Present.
Commissioner Brosseau,
Present.
Commissioner Smith,
Present.
Commissioner Griffin,
Present.
Commissioner Lodge,
Present.
all present. Thank you.
The first action of the commission will be the administrative report by Hpc Mural.
Good evening, Chair Davis and members of the commission. It's great to see everybody here today. And first and foremost, I'd like to start off by saying there's 3 special people in the audience. 2 of them are part of the first case that you'll be hearing. And then the third is our newly appointed 7th commissioner to the Historic Preservation Commission. And so what we'll do, there's still, as you well know, some paperwork that needs to be done. So we'll give Commissioner Sharon the opportunity to speak at her next hearing to introduce herself. So I wanted to first point that out. So thank you. We'll have a full commission. That's exciting. Second, I wanted to point out that in your packets, you are going to find the final draft to the hard work you did with the HRER funding program. And so we wanted to make sure that you got the final draft of what your hard work ultimately looks like. Third, there were some concerns a few weeks ago of a property in one of our historic district neighborhoods that had done some work without permits and removing roofs and windows and some other elements of that. Due to concerns from the neighborhood, code enforcement did a great job responding, and staff will be meeting with the applicant/owner tomorrow on site. And chances are you'll probably see that in front of the commission here in the future. I also wanted to point out that the next commission hearing, there are 2 cases that are tentatively scheduled for that hearing as well. I'll give you a little look at what that might be like. So, and that concludes staff's administrative report. Thank you.
The next action of the commission will be the approval of the meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes by any commission members?
I found one. On case number 4, the HRER program funding memo, in the dark text, Commissioner Hosmer moved to approve the HRER program funding. I think we just changed that to FUNDING, and that's all I found. Anybody else?
If there are no other corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 3rd meeting minutes.
Make a motion to second.
Second.
Chair Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hosmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Brosseau,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Lodge.
Yes.
Thank you.
The first regular agenda item is 1 HP 2022 Robbins window replacement.
Good evening, Historic Preservation Commission. I'm Ben Moriarty, and I'll be presenting the Robbins window replacement 1 HP 2022. The request before you is for a certificate of appropriateness and HRER funding for the replacement of 9 old casement windows with new energy efficient windows and the likeness of the original windows. The site is within the Village Grove 1 through 6 Historic District. This is a bird's eye view of the property. As you can see, it's in the middle of the Village Grove Single Family Historic District. A closer bird's eye view, you'll see it's on the south side of East Hubble Street. And the zoning on the property is single family residential historic property, or R1-7 HP. These are the plans and the elevations for the proposal. You'll notice that windows labeled 1 through 5 are on the street side of the rear yard enclosure. And these are images of the windows that are to be replaced. To get your bearing, number 1 is within the carport, and it starts to circle around the building. 2 is the picture window. 3 is the front bedroom window. 5 is the east side windows. And then on the rear of the home are number 6, 7, 8, and 9. The applicant received 2 quotes for the windows, as shown here. And to remind you of the request, it's for the replacement of 9 windows to obtain a certificate of appropriateness and HRER funding for those replacements. I will note that this application came in before the Historic Preservation Commission approved the policy changes on the HRER program in their last meeting, in your last meeting. But it is still the discretion of the Historic Preservation Commission on funding and potential stipulations. That completes staff's presentation. The applicant is also here if you have any questions of the applicant. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. First of all, the estimates that were submitted, did those include installation, or was that just the materials?
I'll invite Adam, the applicant, to come to speak through the mic. Thank you. No, thank you.
Hi, my name is Adam Robbins, and I just moved over to the house over on Hubble and from Phoenix. And I do a lot of historic renovations. I started in Chicago. We moved here and we fell in love with Hubble. And thanks for your time. It's kind of nice to be a small group like this, and we do appreciate your time. But yeah, we wanted to replace and stay with the same theme that the houses have, with the mullions and the windows, and keeping them casement. And as you can see by the numbers, they're pretty expensive and they're pretty much going up every week. I just met with Anderson, and the price has gone up about $1,500 on that same bid. All within about a 3-month time period. So So if you could repeat the question, I'll
So
answer it as
my
best I
question
can.
was just that I just wanted to know if those estimates included installation or if it was just. the
I would
windows.
install them myself,
Okay. So the estimates that you got though, were they giving you?
just the windows.
Just the windows. And then, Mr. Robbins, the other question I have, if you don't mind, was the diagrams that came in for the windows looked like the muttons didn't match what you had there existing, like the big picture window in the front with the four side buttons.
Correct.
And now are they going to match exactly what you have?
Well, we walked the neighborhood and kind of, there were several different versions of the home that Allied had built. And we thought that we liked the mutton, look in the picture window and the non-movable window in the center. So we wanted to keep in the same theme, but change it up just a little bit.
But it has the grids?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I just wanted to be sure. And then it has double the the muttons that the original window had. So they're on the side windows, there's
Yes.
8 panes instead of the original 4.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yeah,
because I
you're
did have a
welcome.
question on it. Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to ask you if we could superimpose what you're proposing to the existing so we can just see what that graphic looks like. Is there a way to look at that from the photograph of the window to the drawing of the window?
Like, oh yeah, sorry.
So
Yes.
maybe, excuse me, maybe you could just go up to the screen and just kind of point out what it's not going to look like, or what your changes are.
Pardon me, Chair and Vice Chair, in order to capture the dialogue for open meetings, we'll need the applicant to actually speak into the microphone. So
That's fine.
he might be able to use the mouse as a cursor to describe walk it through it. Sorry, Adam.
So this is a XOX window. So the two ends are movable and we're keeping them casement windows. The center one, the O, we wanted to use the grid inside that, like some of the other houses have in the neighborhood. So that's really the biggest change we have, except for they're now thermal pane, argon filled, energy efficient windows.
So how many lights will be in that big centerpiece?
So we need 12.
And then I also have a question about the cost. Now, so for HRER funding, and Mr. Moriarty, you could help us for what is allowed for material cost versus labor when it's homeowner versus licensed contractor. Is there any distinguishment there in the requirements that preclude an owner from being paid to do the work, so to speak?
Chair and Vice Chair, we would only be paying out the HRER funding for the actual windows in this case, since he's not the licensed contractor. And one other piece to that component is that with window replacements, we do ask for a 10-year warranty. So we've asked Adam to assure that the manufacturer would still hold that warranty on the windows if he were to install them themselves. So those are the two aspects. If a homeowner installs it themselves, you'll see on the quote that, oh, pardon me, if you could jump to the Elmo, that the labor cost was not quoted in the estimates, and the invoice, we'd be looking to ensure that the invoice is just for the materials at that rate. Thank you.
And are you looking, and I looked at this about a week ago, and so I'm a little remiss on are you asking for HRER funding for windows that are at the back of the house?
Yes.
That are not within the street view?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'll bring up the next point then. I am not in favor of having the HRER funding for windows that are not historic. If you're keeping all the windows all the way around historic, then I think that's appropriate. And I think it's great you're doing the work yourself. Now you can follow the 10-year warranty and provide a warranty on labor as well.
I have a question to make. Would HER funding apply for, I believe windows number 1, 2, and 3 are the only ones visible from are those the only ones visible from the front of the house, the street, the carport, and the 2 in the front of the house, 1, 2, and 3? If
Chair.
those were kept historically accurate, would HERE funding should apply to those if those 3 front side windows within the public view were kept historically appropriate?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we're reviewing as a commission is it appropriate to get funding for windows that you don't see? But because we haven't made a motion on that, I think it is still up to our discretion, if I understand that correctly. So that could be a subject of discussion here.
I would almost have no problem with the windows that aren't seen from the street. I'd almost sooner see no lights than an overabundance of lights, trying to keep with the 1950s era. But I love the original look of the front of the house, the way it's with the 4 lights on each side of that picture window. I think that really does add to the flavor of and the historic character of that house. I would just personally hate to see those go.
And I would agree with that too. I think because you can see characterization throughout the neighborhood, and say if I took all these 5 pieces and applied it to mine, it would be within the character of the neighborhood, but yet every house is actually individual and different. And we found that in another district that has a lot of different characterizations throughout in Villa Monterey. And in those, I think we need to keep them unique. And I used to live in a house that was built in 1958, and it had the big picture window. And I think there is something that is classic about that. So I think, in my opinion, I'd like to see that window remain as a single light.
So if I might add, the windows 5 and 7 or 5 and 7, 6 and 7. Yeah, the top number, actually 5 and 4 are visible as you're driving west off of Hubble. So we've got some real good space in between the houses. And with regards to the picture window, one of the reasons that we wanted to have the grid pattern on that is our daughter had ran through a window and cut her arm in half. And so the windows are a little bit lower, really not to code anymore. And even though the glass is safety glass or tempered glass, it adds a little bit of visual aspect to it when the window's wide open, that it's not like something you can run through. And not even 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, the previous owner came over and the kids were playing in the front yard, kicked a ball, and broke the window out. So it's more, we certainly wouldn't mind having the picture window, but we would like to have the grids there just as kind of a safety precaution. When kids are running around the house, it's a horrifying experience to go through. So, but that's really, we walked around the neighborhood. We didn't like to pop out. We're lucky to have the house that we have. It was the original like model home for when they built the neighborhood. And so there's all sorts of archaic gizmos and stuff that we just love and we keep. But we did like the grid pattern, but if it's something that is a make or break with regards to that, we would certainly go with the picture window, because at the end of the day, if someone does run into it, it's going to break into a million pieces.
I think, and nowadays with contemporary glass, that's not quite of an issue as it used to be. And I don't see that as a real problem. I understand what you mean in terms of having some kind of a barrier, visual barrier, so somebody doesn't see it as something you could walk through. Like you've probably seen where birds will fly right into the glass because they think it's still the horizon going through their house. But I still like the idea of keeping that as a single pane. If I understand this correctly, then windows 6 and 7 are visible from the street.
6 and 7 are not visible
not
from the
visible.
street. Those are the rear of the house. Actually, 4 and 5 are visible from the street as you're traveling west on Hubble.
Okay, so I guess what I'd like to see is the commission discuss the funding as it relates to visible versus non-visible from the street, just to make sure we're all in agreement.
I'll start. Personally, on this case, I don't have a problem funding all the windows since they're keeping the original muttons in the original design throughout the house. So they're keeping the historic flair on all the windows.
I agree with you there. And also, did I see that the total bill was over 15,000 just for the windows? Something like that, close to 16,000. I mean, any way you look at it, we should go the max on this one and, get them, as much money as we can for this work. I mean, it's great. So if you were to just do the front windows and we were to just say, we're only going to do the front windows, we still would be able to match that, because that would be at least half of what they're paying for their total. So that's the way I see it. It's really wonderful, lovely. And I noticed that you have those up down lights on your the patio on the back is in one of the photos. Those are very cool.
We kept as much as we could. I used to sell LEDs, and it's like really, light years away from, but they're really cool. I mean, it's a really, really cool house.
Yeah.
Built like to last for sure.
Right. Excellent. Thank you.
And I would just like to add, I think doing the front and the back, I don't have any issues with that as well. I think keeping the consistency around and given the structure and your plan, I think it looks very nice.
So, Mr. Robbins, are you willing to have all the windows redone as the original house?
That's what our intent was. Yes. Yeah.
No, I mean, with the number of lights that were there originally.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Unless it's something that the window manufacturer can't accommodate because of manufacturing process. But of course, yeah, it's not. We really like the large pane of glass in the center. We do. However, what we went through when my daughter ran through the window was something, out of a nightmare. So,
understand.
As best we could, it's not necessarily the mutton. It's so hard to say mutton because it's not a lamb,
The lights.
or sheep. But, to have the same amount, I can't imagine that would be cost prohibitive or manufacturer issue. But they do, have their limitations when they're
Right.
making.
And they may not stock as readily something like this in this design because it's now coming back. But I have to agree with my colleagues that your case was in the pipeline as far as funding goes. So I would be amenable to funding the whole project to the HERA max.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve case number 1 HP 2022 for certificate of appropriateness.
I'd like to second that.
Chair Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hosmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Brissot,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin, Yes. Commissioner Lodge.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
And then I'll go further to say that I'll make a motion we just already passed it. Never mind. We'll move forward. I'll make an motion to approve 1 HP 2022 for HRER funding.
I second that motion.
Chair Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hosmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Brusseau,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin, Yes. Commissioner Lodge.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Can I say one more thing? Thank you so much. That's awesome. Ben Moriarty was awesome. He's so easy to work with and he communicated and he told me to arrive 15 minutes early. And I got my run in from the library area where it's blocked off. So maybe you guys started me on a good exercise program too, but Ben was awesome. And thank you. Thank you so much. Always communicating with me and made the process very easy. And I apologize for the hand drawings, but that's the way I do it. Thank you.
Thank you for restoring a home.
The next regular agenda item is staff audit of Historic Preservation Commission hearing agenda overview.
Good afternoon, Chair Davis and members of the Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Jesus Murillo. I'm a planner here with the city. And today I'll be presenting in front of you actually a couple different of the items on the agenda. So if you would bear with me and as I go through each one of these, we have separated them individually for you so we can go through each one and provide action if you so choose. This first one, as you mentioned, is the staff audit of the Hpc Agenda. This audit came in conjunction with the Historic Preservation Commission Sunset Review. Just to provide an update, that review has actually been rescheduled to April 25th. This is the third time that it's been rescheduled. The last time it was supposed to have been done February 28th. So I just wanted to make sure I identified that for the commission. As such, staff was able to complete our analysis of the agenda. And so so staff will be presenting those findings here tonight for you. So what staff did, we took a look at all the agendas, all the other boards and commissions, including the council, and we wanted to look for the consistencies and make sure that the Historic Preservation Commission was following those same guidelines and process. And these are just some of the examples here. Forgive me here. So at first, we'd like to identify the items that were identified on all of those agendas. The first one was a call to order. Second one was a roll call. The third one, which does make mention to in the chair's opening, but doesn't necessarily identify it, is that all of these commissions and boards have a public comment for non-agendized items. And I'll speak a little more to these later in the presentation, but I wanted to identify this. So the yellow ones are kind of the ones that I identified being different from the current commission. Then there's an administrative report, which again, I'll point out here that that's where the future items are identified, and we'll get to that as well later in the presentation, followed by the minutes. Then it rolls into what are the action items, and in those, two of the ones that we don't see at all or rarely see on the Historic Preservation Commission are the continuance agenda and the consent agenda. And again, we'll talk about those in a little bit. You're very familiar, as you just experienced now, the regular agenda. And then every now and again, you have had in the recent past experienced a non-action item. And this is actually a great time, I think, to have this discussion because one, we have a full commission, and we do have some newly arrived commissioners. So this was great timing, staff felt. And then they all end with the adjournment. And again, those were the consistencies between all the agendas for those boards and commissions. Now, with the Hpc agenda, typically what happens is we begin with the call to order shortly after we have the roll call. And then Again, the public comment is identified within the chair's opening speech, but it does not specifically identify the non-agendized items in case someone wanted to come down here and have that conversation, which, like I said, we'll discuss in a minute. Then we go into the administrative report, the minutes, as you saw today. And then again, the consent agenda item currently not identified, non-identified at all. And then we go into the regular agenda, the non-action. It is identified in the script, but not in the agenda. And again, we'll discuss that a little more. As you will see, the agenda second to the last item is the announcements, which aren't found in any of the other boards and commissions, and then with the adjournment. So first, if I could focus on the public comment non-agendized. Again, as I shortly described, what that is that's an opportunity for any resident or citizens to come in and give a comment based on something that won't be discussed that night. And as such, after the comment is made, acknowledged by the chair, and no discussion or action is being made. And so staff will update the chair's opening dialogue to include that. Going into the continuance agenda, this is usually the items that were identified on a publicly noticed agenda, but due to new information or a freshly received comment from a neighbor, or just sometimes depending on, for example, if there happened to only be 5 people on the commission that night and they needed 4 out of the 5, some people would prefer to have the case heard by a full commission or with a larger number. And so they ask to be heard at a different hearing date. Typically, most of these boards and commissions allow what we would call one free continuance. And that continuance can happen one of 2 ways. It either goes to a date for certain or a date to be determined. If it's a date to be determined, sometime in the future, that case will come back to the board. If it's a specific date and for whatever reason the applicant asks for a continuance, in the same manner that at each one of these moments in time, the commission has the ability to state whether they want to hear the case regardless or continue. And normally it's on the second when you do hear a board or commission have that discussion out loud. And again, staff will be adding this to the chair script. Next is the consent agenda. And this is an item that has not been seen on the commission. And this is a tool that has been used by several boards and commissions in the past. And so typically what these are items or cases that staff feel meet ordinance. There have been the applicant or the owner agree to all the stipulations, and there hasn't really been any opposition from any neighbors. But it is one of those items that staff does feel that the commission should know is being considered at an administrative level. These are typically going to be a certificate of no effect versus the certificate of appropriateness that you just approved recently. And so what this will do is this will allow staff to tell the commission, maybe this doesn't necessarily need to be discussed, but we would like to let the commission know what we think is in our purview and the decision we make. And that, I think, helps the relationship between the commission and the staff know what we feel each other's purview is. Now, typically, if this is on the consent agenda, whether there's 1 or 3 or whatever number of cases, the commission would vote on these all in one motion. That's not to say that the commission couldn't ask a question on any of those items, or if someone showed up to speak, they could allow someone to speak while still leaving that item on the consent agenda. Now, if at any point in time the commission felt that there was enough of a discussion that could formulate because of the case, the commission could ask to have that item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. And so that is one of the elements that we hope to add and introduce to the Historic Preservation Commission, and will also be added to the chair's speech. The Historic Preservation Commission has an item discussed as future items. Typically what this is staff's opportunity to identify to the commission any future items coming that they feel might need some extra attention, or just that the commission should be notified. With all the other commissions and boards, this is not its own individual item. It's actually provided within the administrative report. And so this is one of the items that staff will be removing from the agenda, and the whomever the liaison is will be incorporating this into their administrative report. The next one is the announcements. Again, none of the boards or commissions had this as part of their agenda. And so this was also identified by the attorneys as one of those items that can be very delicate because there's not supposed to be any type of discussion or response to it. And so therefore it was deemed that, again, in keeping with the same consistency as the other ones, this is another one of those items that will be removed from the agenda. And so that concludes staff's presentation. Just some side notes from that. Again, in keeping with knowing we have a brand new, fresh, and very excited commission, we just wanted to reiterate some of the elements that coincide with that, and remind the commission of some of the rules that are relevant to and practiced in the other commissions and boards. And one of them is that, you know, the whomever the liaison is, we will always address the chair first, and then anyone else if they made the comment prior to, if it wasn't the chair. And also that in order for us to be able to correctly record who's made what comment, and for us to be able to later correct the correct minutes, it would be appreciated if the chair addressed or acknowledged whomever the commissioner was or vice chair was that was about to speak, so that we can clearly keep a record of that. And that always helps us. Sometimes the voices that are recorded aren't always easy to recognize. And so having that really helps. So that does conclude my presentation. I will be here for any questions or comments.
May I ask a question? Should I identify myself? Because should I say this is Rose Smith asking a question?
So Chair Davis and Commissioner Smith, typically, I know that, especially since we're in different rooms, I think any kind of action to get the chair's attention so that the chair may say Commissioner Smith and then a commissioner, then you would speak.
Okay, my question is this. Do the other commissions have a good of the order as part of their agenda? I know that I do enjoy hearing the announcements from my colleagues. Perhaps is there a good of the order or on the other agendas?
So Chair Davis and Commissioner Smith, we did not find any other commission or board that had a good of an order.
I have a question. So in tonight's agenda, should we delete the commissioner announcements and future agenda items, or will this take place after tonight's meeting?
Yeah, Chair Davis, currently the way the agenda items are laid out were approved and were also are posted for the, I would hate that someone showed up to hear the announcements and then there weren't any because they felt that they saw that they were on the agenda. So tonight, I think you could follow the way the agenda is written.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chair and members of the commission. On to the next item, which I believe is item number 5. One of the commissioners provided staff with some information, and the commission directed staff to put this as a discussion item for tonight. So we appreciate that. Thank you. This was in regards to the Scottsdale Historic Preservation Commission work program. And so as you can see, the one that we had on the internet was identified as being a little out of date. And so the first thing staff did is we removed it from online, and before we replaced it, we wanted to get direction from the commission on what that meant or what that was going to look like. And so I know that in the past we looked at other work programs, and they all had kind of different flavors and different ways that they were laid out. And so what staff did is we were trying to, at least before we came to the commission for some direction, we did a little research and see, well, how are there any consistencies with the way these are done? And it was really tough to identify that. So what we did, and this was taken right from the opening script for the chair, where it identifies what the goals and the mission of the Historic Preservation Commission is. This comes right from what we tell the public is happening. So all staff did was we identified those as bullet points, just to identify what it seems that to be the three main groupings. Now, the commission can create whatever subsect you would like to, and again, you can even use that. The reason we provided that previous work program, so you could use that as a guide. And one comment that staff had is that, or direction is that, is this suited to be on the website? Is this something that you would like to have out there identified? Or is this something that you would like to agree upon as a commission and then have that for yourselves and know that those are the goals and revisit it throughout the year and see if you're meeting those? Or is it something that you would like to see on the website? Again, if it is, then, staff's open to any direction given by the commission. And also staff's open to coming back and creating the titles or the subsects as we did with the HRER program. Staff's open to any discussion or direction from the commission. And that concludes this portion of staff's presentation. And again, we're here for any questions, comments, or direction.
So, Mr. Murillo, the reason that this interested me when I discovered this and read through it was that it gives us a goal. It gives people in the audience an understanding of things we're looking forward to fix or improve on, or, make better for our community. And I don't necessarily think everything in here could be taken verbatim, but I think it was kind of a nice capturing for future commissioners as well as the new ones to see where we're going and the things that are most important. And I think with one of the things is, of course, the work that Commissioner Ben has been doing for the outreach. And I think it's incredibly important for us all to keep that in our vision. So is it appropriate for us to have further dialogue about what this might look like?
Chair Davis and Commissioner Hosmer, yes, we agendize this so that you can have that discussion and give either staff direction or make a decision. And again, the action can be to continue the discussion, give staff direction tonight. This is open for your discussion.
So one of the things we would want to talk about and understand is not just put things on a list, but have end dates, have goals, and make achievements, because we certainly wouldn't want to have somebody look backward and say, had a lot of aspirations, but you didn't get any of those done. So I would propose that whatever we propose to do on here, we make sure it's achievable within at least a year's time. And I think maybe we could discuss openly what the hot buttons might be.
I just want to add, I know we discussed this earlier when we were eating, but I think just educating the community is huge on the benefits of having a historic property. I think personally, a lot of friends of mine don't even know these benefits, and also expanding an outreach and just reaching out on social media and really trying to grow the awareness of the benefits of that. Is really essential, especially now as the real estate is kind of crazy and things are getting really, old buildings are getting leveled and, things are coming in. We're losing the character of our city. So I think that's really important.
Well, I'll start off with a couple of things I think we can attack. And one of them, of course, is already on our agenda, and that's the HRER funding that we want to do. I think the outreach that Ben Brousseau has been working on, I think everybody probably agrees already that that's an important aspect of it. I think because of our history with Villa Monterey, we want to show that we're working for the public and making things better and better defining what our guidelines are. And I think that's what I'd like, one of the things I'd like to see on our agenda as well is that, or on this list, is making sure that our guidelines are extremely clear and not ambiguous so that it isn't just somebody's opinion, but it's got something that they can put their teeth into so the homeowner doesn't feel like they're being slighted by this happens to be this particular commission's bent, but more that it's in a guideline and it's written and we're just supporting that. One of the things that I noticed in the list, Mr. Moriarty, is that there's some things in here that look like were on a previous list that were unbeknownst to me, and kind of wondered what the status of some of those things are. And maybe over time, we could identify if any of these things need to be brought back to a list or not. And then I'd be interested in any other thoughts anybody has on some of the hot buttons we need to start agendizing. Mr. Brochure, you always have some good ideas. So one of the things that I think we've discussed maybe casually, but we could publicly do it here, is that I've always wondered, we see a lot of properties in Scottsdale that we wish were historic. What is the outreach? Is there a division in the city? Is it all just done by citizens that knock on the door and say, do you know you have a historic office building and you could be designated?
I think that's interesting. You bring that point up. That's actually what I was trying to think how we would go about, getting something like that said. What's next? Like forecasting or trending. What buildings are of interest and how do we get involved? Yeah, I don't think there's a process for that, is there?
Chair Davis and Commissioners Hosmer and Brousseau, with doing research in the past through meeting minutes, what staff identified was that the commission would direct staff to contact specific properties. Now, since those minutes, there have been other legislation such as Prop 207 and things like that that make it a little more sensitive when staff themselves are telling someone, hey, you should potentially rezone, or you should potentially have this change made to your property. With speaking to the attorneys, there was definitely, I think, the openness to say, hey, I think there's a way to say something to invite someone and educate someone on their property if they don't already know, and make the suggestion. And so all of them, every time that staff approached, it was through the direction of the Historic Preservation Commission. What we read in the ordinance, it didn't come straight from the commission as to not overstep any bounds, but it was direction given to staff.
So we can assign you some properties.
I kind of recall a discussion that we had with somebody from Phoenix. No, they can't. They can't be promoting that, because if it turns around and does become as a rezoning and the property owner loses money, that paper trail can be led back to the city and the city can be held liable for. That's how I understand it.
Chair Davis and Commissioner Brousseau, correct. So in essence, what would happen is the commission would direct staff could reach out and notify the owner, and then it would be up to the owner to decide whether that went any further, because the request would have to come from them.
Out of curiosity, do you think these brochures would be an opportunity to keep the template can be changed regularly, like every year. And if we had maybe a what's next, or, the future of history, of historic preservation type of thing, you think that would work as kind of a marker for each year, something like that?
Chair Davis and Commissioner Brousseau, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a planner, but definitely we always think education is the best way to go, and getting out as much information. And as we'll discuss in the last item on the agenda today, staff does think that's a good start.
So let me just make sure I understand with your comments, Ben, and yours, Mr. Moriarty. So we can, if I'm understanding this correct, suggest that there's a property that's interesting, that an old church that could be potentially historic and get some benefits from it. We could ask the staff to reach out. They would give them information about designation, but not go into anything that would potentially hurt them financially, but you could still make the informative distribution of what they could do with historic property designation, correct?
Chair Davis and Vice Chair Hosmer, that is correct.
Okay.
As long as this, again, I'm not an attorney, and so I definitely make sure that we ran the specific language by them. Typically, when someone comes through any type of rezoning process, if they are requesting that action from the city, there is then a waiver that the city says, well, if you're going to request something from the city, please consider signing this waiver that states that you will not make that claim later, since you're the one making the request. Now, there is also a waiver of that claim where someone says, no, make the decision and I'm still not going to sign it. But obviously those are some extreme cases. But that is correct. That is, if we're suggesting and they move forward with the process, I think that makes the argument about that diminishing the value, a different conversation that if the city were themselves to rezone or bring an action like that on a property.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. So my question is, what in that situation where an owner may not want to hamstring themselves by having a piece of property declared as historical, is there ever a situation where a plaque is designated like they did with Scottsdale High School? I mean, now it's just a plaque. The building was not saved and it was developed, but at least there was a plaque as an identifying marker. Is that something that would go through this commission?
So
I mean, say does it have to be protected in order for it to be designated?
Chair Davis and Commissioner Smith, that is a good question. I don't know that I know the full response to that. So that is definitely something I'll go back and do research on and bring that to you for the following meeting. Having said that, the placement of a plaque on a property would be the same, just making sure that we have the permission and the authorization from that owner to place something like that. I mean, I don't know that the discussion can't be had and there couldn't be some kind of identifier saying this is what the city would like to be. Again, I think that could be included either on a map or within the same work program that you have here, that one of your goals is this specific property be identified. But for the rest of that, I will do a little research for you.
Commissioner Hosmer or Vice Chair Hosmer?
Thank you. So, Mr. Maria, as I see in agenda item number 6, that you will be discussing the potential historic significant sites, which may dovetail partly into this. And I think we can maybe get some action going from the commission on ones that we want to try to support or push. And I think it'd be nice if everybody had a homework project where we could say at the next meeting, let's each come up with a site that we thought should have been designated and wasn't. And we can make a suggestion at the next meeting if anybody has any thought on that. I know we don't usually like homework, but.
This is Chair Davis. I would support that. I like that idea.
It's Ben Brousseau. I just wanted to say maybe with the brochure, we could also tackle this and assign for the next meeting. Is that possible? It'd be cool.
Okay, the next regular agenda item is the Historic Preservation Commission Historic Site Tour discussion.
Thank you, Chair Davis. So as promised, thank you for the direction. We did go back and did a little research and try to find some information on what this means and how it could, if it could be executed. And so any city sanctioned tour is just considered an offsite meeting. And there were some, how should I put this? There were some elements that were identified as far as what that means and how that can happen. The first one was that any offsite meeting must be publicly noticed. Okay. What that means is the same way that this commission hearing was identified to the public in the same way. The meeting must be recorded, and that's where staff really was trying to understand what that meant, be it i.e. video with some commissions and boards, audio like with this commission. And sometimes some elements can be noted if those resources were there. And the important one, I think no different than if we were in this room, was that the accommodations must be made for whomever does happen to show up that day or for that hearing. Having said that, what that did, we started looking at the logistics, and we started noticing that at least right now, there is limited resources by way of staffing, and especially when it came to vehicles and what that meant. Also, us trying to understand, and again, we'll continue to do research. I just wanted, you had directed staff to put it on here for discussion, and so I'll do a little more research as well if I don't answer all your questions fully. But identifying how we were going to be able to record what was going on, especially if there were several vehicles, and what happens if we're walking around a site and someone says something brilliant, we don't want it to be lost, or if someone says something with a great idea, we want to make sure that that's recorded. And so those are some of the logistics that we're trying to understand right now. Having said all of this, one staff suggested alternative is that maybe there be a Historic Preservation Commission retreat. And so what this does is that, I don't want to say eliminates, but it removes a lot of the formality. And so sometimes you don't at that point in time, the recording is stationary. And so you don't always necessarily have to refer to the chair and go and be called on. Same with the public. If someone shows up, there can be an actual dialogue. And so that was one alternative that potentially could happen. And that can be done a couple different ways. You could decide to do it on the same week, on the same day that you're going to be here, just a couple hours before, and then end with dinner and then the hearing. Or you can choose a separate Wednesday just to kind of keep the rhythm. It doesn't have to be a Wednesday, but for example, you could keep a Wednesday that you weren't going to be here at a hearing so that you could focus on the retreat. And what that could also be done is there be the ability, especially now with technology, to have some type of a virtual tour. And that can be done in two ways, having a street view set up or aerial views and bird's eye views, or the commissioner, as you will see with the last item, is assigned a building or a community where they go and take pictures and then come back and at that retreat provide information and what the significance of those findings were. And so again, these are just some of the alternatives that staff was trying to provide in case we couldn't get to one of those tours here in the near future. And so again, staff is here open to any suggestions or direction for what that might look like for the commission. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. Can I also make another suggestion? I went to Scottsdale College course last week. It was called Behind the Photo. And Bruce Wall from the city of Scottsdale gave some interesting behind the scenes historical perspective on places in Scottsdale. And it seems that he might be able to present to this commission things that I didn't know about. I didn't know that the Elks Lodge was the officers' quarters of the POW camp that used to be on McDowell. I mean, it seems like the city is tuned in to this historical property. So perhaps having someone from the city present to this commission during the course of a meeting, those properties of historical significance, maybe that we can identify as having historical interest for preservation. That might be something maybe we can do, because he knew a lot that I didn't know about. And I learned a lot about the Elks Club, about the escape from the POW camp, about the Titus House. And they do, Ms. Vidala and Mr. Wall seem to know an awful lot about the city and the historical properties. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Vice Chair Hosmer.
And I would agree with you. I think that's a great suggestion. It would be a good start for our momentum that we need. Because I had done some research once on the POW camps and how there were some Germans that escaped and things that happened behind the scenes that we never knew. When I go through down to Old Town Scottsdale, where the Rusty Spur is, there's a couple of buildings along there that just seem like they should be more part of a district. And one of the things that came to mind was the Kiva Theater, when it had the little ticket booth out in the front. And I'm not talking about the Portofino, because I think people were talking about Kachina or Kiva as being a different kind of movie venue, but actually the one I was thinking of was the marquee out in front that showed Disney movies. And even though it's not being used as a theater, the building could still, its facade could remain. And I think, if anything, I'd like to suggest that I would like to nominate that one as one for staff to look at. And maybe as time goes on, we can say that everybody on here suggests a building or an area for a district. And then maybe you could work with us on some kind of outreach, if that would work. Thank you.
Commissioner Brochure.
Hi there. I think I'll just jump in and just kind of to ease any issues that you guys are having with concerns rather about connectivity or, making a recording of this stuff. We could do lots of fun things. We could have a body cam type of situation, not an actual body cam, but one person holding the camera that is connected to Facebook Live. We could do live tours easily with the technology that we have readily available. That's free. Also easy to record that while we're going live. We could make a recording of it and go back and edit something down to make something really nice and evergreen that'll stay on the internet and look good in 5 years from now. So not really concerned about that. Also, to get the audio, I'm really big on audio, and it is tough to do good audio recordings with just a video camera. So the idea would be to just have a very basic lav mic, and whoever's giving the tour in whatever situation, they would have the lav mic. And then when there are questions, and that mic would have to be shared, they'd have to take the microphone and share it with the person who's asking questions. But I don't really see that technology side being an issue with all the stuff we have at hand today. Thanks.
Vice Chair Hosmer.
Thank you. Mr. Moriarty, I have another one while my mind's going. We talked during dinner that there was an interesting mobile home park at 68th Street, approximately in Thomas Road. That mobile home park has been there since I had my paper route in the early 60s. I believe that mobile home park was probably built in the late 50s. And I would like to see that whole district become a district. And those are all privately owned. And I think what the beauty of that is, because they're privately owned and they treasure it, it's not one that would come under contention with people saying, I could build an apartment complex here, because there's too many owners that would have to collaborate to sell that property. So I think that would be a nice outreach to look at that property. Thank you.
Commissioner Brosseau.
Thanks. I just wanted to jump in. We were talking about the Apache Rocks historic marker today that nobody seems to know anything about. That's located, where was that district?
Apache Park.
Yeah.
And if you Google Apache Rocks historical marker, a picture of it comes up as being in Scottsdale, but there's no designation of it.
There are just so many cool, unique things that are not even, it doesn't necessarily even need to be architecture. It could be like this historic area. We don't even know what really even, do we know what happened there? No. So yeah, it's a great conversation.
Regular agenda item 7, Scottsdale Historic Register properties and districts.
Good evening once again. I'm sorry, I'm so used to introducing myself with each case. This was again direction given to staff by the commission to identify if we had anything existing or whether we could create anything that identified those historic properties or districts within the city. Staff did find that we did have a map that identified a lot of those projects. Staff worked with our GIS department and with Mr. Ben Moriarty as well to make sure we had another set of eyes on it. And we did identify that there was a map that was created. We did, through us and doing some research, we updated it to include some of the more recent projects that currently went through, for example, the Kimsey. And so this map is now going to be updated. Staff will be providing this on the web and tying it into the historic preservation website. What staff also is going to do is it's going to have some enlarged maps also for some of those districts that are a little more difficult to see, because as you saw from the previous slide, they are scattered. We did provide an inset map for the downtown district to kind of help. And so as you can see, we included some of the larger maps for those properties that might be too small to see within the actual map itself. While staff was doing research, what we did is we compared the map that we had to that found on the National Registry. And all the same properties were identified on one and the other, except for this one that you see here. This is the Valleyfield Riding and Polo Club located over on Oak and 64th Street. And so this is one property, again, that the National Agency identifies as historic, but the city doesn't, because there was never a case that went through to zone this particular property. And so staff is curious to get direction from the commission, whether this is something that you would like to include on the other map with the footnote, or whether that other map should only be for those properties that have been historically preserved through action through the city. And other than that, this is a bird's eye view of that property. And that was really the only difference that we saw. And Chair Davis, we'd appreciate if the conversation could be had a little louder for the rest of the commission and.
I was trying to give a little context to the site. There's the Red Cross, I think it is, that has a facility, either that white building or adjacent to it. And then on the south side of Oak Street is where the National Guard stores a lot of their equipment back there, to give a context. And then there's to the north, off screen, above the screen, there's some water tanks. The city of Phoenix, I think, has water, a well station over there, if that helps anybody in context.
Yes, Chair Davis and Vice Chair Hosmer, that is correct. And a little further to the west, you will find the ball fields that are located next to the buttes. And yes, staff knows a little more about Polo in the Southwest than we did before creating this map.
Could this be one that we direct staff to contact the owners?
Chair Davis, yes. And that does conclude staff's presentation for this. So again, still feel free to provide any direction.
Regular agenda item 8, historic district brochure and outreach discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this was at the direction of the commission. I'll leave this up to you because this is the project that you have been working on together. And I know that there were conversations had during lunch. And so now here it is formally for you to be able to discuss. We do have them in paper form in your packets. And I do have all the slides on one, but I have them individually as well if you wanted to have staff go through any of these electronically on the screen. And so that concludes staff's presentation. We're here to hear your discussion or for any questions or comments to staff.
Commissioner Smith?
Is there going to be a template available for this? So we know how much information will fit?
So Chair Davis and Commissioner Smith, I believe Commissioner Brousseau might better be able to answer that question. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, we will have a template. There's one, a couple of them that we can use, but this is the first one that we'll just make copies of online, and then you can change up the colors. It's so easy. Again, I hate to promote another company, but it's canva.com that we'll be using that with, and you'll all be added as admins basically, and you'll be able to make changes. And again, change the color and stuff like that. We want to keep the font, I think, the same general feeling. So when you're in there playing around with it, just try to kind of keep it the same, but change it up a little if you want to have fun with the colors and whatnot. Yeah. Maybe we should just go ahead and just jump into this right now and just does anybody have we could go down the list, town and country. Does anybody want to take that one? Turn to that one. Have that ready by next month, at least the copy for it.
I do have a question.
Sorry. Okay.
This is Rose Smith. Do we have to list our references?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think if you're going to reference another article, we should that's a good question. I think that we should definitely reference anything that you're, using as material for sure. But I think, where this really started was kind of your personal, a little bit more of a personal take on things. So it's your story that you're telling about it, and then something that maybe could be referenced by somebody else down the line. Keeping it really personal, because there's going to be a room on there about you and what you bring to the commission. So it's really, the idea here is to give people not just a good sense of what's going on in terms of historic preservation, but to promote for future commissioner needs. Once not all of us are going to be here for 6 years. So it's sort of full circle type of thing. But yes, definitely, I think it's a good idea.
I would love to take Old Town.
Okay. I wish that we were doing it like that. I think what we're going to do are the specific already designated neighborhoods. There's 5 of them. So if we can knock those out, if people want to sign up for 5, and then, we should do full 8, I think. So maybe once we get behind it. So who likes town and country? Who would like to tackle that? Town and country.
I'll take town and country.
Peter Hosmer.
I didn't announce myself.
Town and country.
Town and country.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I thought, I was just thinking, because where does everybody start? Because some people may not have certain resources that others might, or some people may have more, some other backdrop. And I think, what I'm thinking about that might help is if you take yourself back to 1963 and give a sort of a context to Scottsdale and its growth, and why a town and country or a village grove was built and by what developer. And there isn't going to be a cheat sheet you can go online and says, what's the historic facts of town and country? But I think if we came up with a theme that works through all these districts about giving what the life of Scottsdale was like in that era, maybe we could brainstorm things that would help each other get enough information to make a nice brochure out of it. Thank you.
Yeah, just to jump in, guys, if you find that you're not going to be using this template right away, well, for the next meeting, it'd be great just to have the copy and we can go through and look at it. And then, I believe we will together then figure out what length will be appropriate, however many words that is. So don't, and this is the whole thing with assigning creative projects to people. You don't want to stifle anybody's creative ideas by giving too much direction or too little direction, right? So you don't want to be confused by not having any information at all. But I think Peter, that's a really great starting point, is to kind of envision what it was like in Scottsdale in those years, and then, touch on the different points that make it historic. What is it that's nice about this? What is it that makes this neighborhood unique and attractive to people in comparison to some of the things that we have today? I guess I was going to say something else. That's totally it. Yeah.
Commissioner or Vice Chair Hosmer.
Thank you. Another thought I might have is that if, let's say I take Town and Country and you have Old Town, and I had some tidbits that I thought were interesting, let's throw a bag out there to each person of information that we particularly know that might be interesting to each other. And that way we can build it a little faster. So maybe at the next meeting, we come up with what we've discovered for our particular project or product or area, but we throw out little pieces that we can hand to the others that are working on the other districts.
Actually, it's Ben Brousseau. I was just going to jump in. I think Old Town would actually be a really great one to do once we get the first 5 knocked out here. So let's just keep running down that list. Who would like to take Village Grove?
I can do it. I started it from last time.
Okay, great. Lovely. Village Grove. We've got Sands North. Sands North. Fantastic.
I started that one.
Lovely for Ms. Smith. Villa Monterey. Okay, great. And Old Town Scottsdale. We do have that one in there. So we'll have to call it, we'll come up with some, we'll change it up a little. I mean, Old Town Scottsdale is a massive, area with so many different things going on. But that would be your job, would be to kind of break down, what are the most unique destinations on that list? Where would you start? I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we've got the first 5 knocked out. So I would like to take, and then I guess with our next commissioner, we can get to that when she joins us next month. That's exciting. I guess I would need to take one too. So let's do maybe like a what's next, or do you think we could get away with that?
Yeah, Chair Davis and Commissioner Brousseau. Yes, if you don't mind, I'd like to make sure that, we're constantly making sure that we don't break quorum
Right.
or those rules. So yeah, it'd probably be best, like with the brochures, if staff was kind of that point of contact. And if you once you're finished with your product and you feel that it's ready to be what I will do with your direction, in the same way that this was an attachment to the memo for the commission, I will do the same thing. Then this way you have the information to look at. And when you come here, you can then discuss that information. So please use me as that point of reference once you're finished with your product. And the same way, again, that we want to make sure that if there is sharing of information, that we don't break any of the quorums, and because this can be the venue to have the discussion. This might also be a great project to have for a retreat as well, or something similar to this, to where you're not confined to certain types of regulations that you would be here, or processes in the agenda.
Do we have any commissioner announcements?
I have an announcement. We're in the process of restoring the R3 mural, which is on 70th Street in Goldwater. It went up 2 years ago. It was originally a temporary mural, but now they're letting us, she's letting us keep it up. So we're painting it now. It's in the process of being renovated. And next month, we will be doing the footings for Scottsdale's next book box. It's called the Scottsdale's Lille Libraries. We're calling this one a book box, and it's about half complete. It's designed by Ned Sawyer, and the architect Ned Sawyer, and the sculptor Gary Slater is actually in the process of building it, and it's very, very cool. And then as a kind of an update on that, I just learned about brick by brick, brick for brick with the city, and I think it is so cool. And coincidentally, the Scottsdale Library is working on a sort of a side project with them right now too. So it looks like our charity program, Brick by Brick, is going to be involved in this and possibly helping out with the footings for our book box. So it's really great to hear about that program. I know it's been around for a couple of years, but it just was really moving. So this thing has been one of those projects that has really happened on its own because of timing. And it's exciting to know that we're going to have this beautiful modernist book box right at the entry of the proposed Scottsdale Garden Permit District. So that's my announcement. That'll be next month.
Do we have any future agenda items? Seeing none, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Great. Can we get a photo? Could somebody come and take a picture of the group? Like, since we've got, like, can we have you take a photo? That'd be awesome. You guys want to stay here for 1 second and take a group photo? Okay, great. Or Jesus.
I'm like trying to hold it in. I'm not sick.
All right. There you go. Thanks.
And you have to send it to me.
Yeah, I will. I'll send it to you guys for sure.
Are we good? Get everybody.
Thanks, Jesus. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're good. Yeah. That's great.
You guys know how to work an iPhone, like so that you can like adjust the. This is chopped off. We got pretty much everybody. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't matter to you. Okay. Yeah. We should all stand together a little bit closer. Maybe that.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, guys. It's so rare that we get a chance to. Thank you so much. Yeah. Let's just get it here. Yes.
Where are we going in?
Thank you so much. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it. No, we're just gonna have, I mean, we just. Yeah, that's great, right? So send it to me, so you can forward it up.
Cool.
Great, thank you.
Wait a second, I think.
Yes, I do. Good.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Are you trapped back there?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Yes.